Hi all, welcome to the 2.1. Here is the specification if you want to pause it and just have a quick read through. Okay, so what do we need to know about eukaryotic cells? So eukaryotic cells include animal, plant, algal and fungal cells. There's slight differences between each type of cell. In general, eukaryotic means true nucleus, so it means that the cell has a nucleus. So any eukaryotic cell will have a nucleus that contains the genetic material. You can see we've got a label diagram here of all of the different components of the cells. We'll start with the cell membrane. So cell membrane is obviously around the outside of the cell. It's not even labelled on there. But the cell membrane is made up of a phospholipid bilayer, which you'll learn about a little bit later on in the course, and it controls the entry and exit of substances to and from the cell. The nucleus, you can see in the middle here, the red bit. The nucleus is surrounded by a nuclear membrane, and this nuclear membrane has nuclear pores, which allows things such as mRNA to move in and out of the nucleus. This middle part, the nucleolus, is where you find most of the genetic material, and this always stains darker when you stain a cell and look at it. So the nucleolus stains darker, and the function of the nucleus is to hold the DNA within the chromosomes. The mitochondria here is often described as a sausage-shaped organelle. Has a double membrane, so if you look closely, you can see it has a membrane on the outside and then it has an inner membrane, and the inner membrane has lots of folds, and those folds are called cristae. The mitochondria is the site of respiration, which essentially produces ATP, or the site of aerobic respiration specifically, which produces ATP. The Golgi apparatus is here, or the Golgi body. It's usually drawn as a series of flattened discs with vesicles that bud off the sides of the sacs of Golgi. The job of the Golgi is to process and package lipids and proteins. So after they've been produced, they are processed and packaged by the Golgi into vesicles. So you can see some of the vesicles here on the side. And then what happens is those vesicles usually move towards the cell membrane, and we can empty the contents of the vesicles, whether it be lipids or proteins, outside the cell so they can move around the body to wherever they're needed. The lysosome, shown here in green, is a round organelle surrounded by a membrane, so we say that it's membrane bound. It contains digestive enzymes, and when we refer to digestive enzymes, we don't mean enzymes that you find in the digestive system, we just mean any enzyme that breaks something down. So at this stage, we are referring to digestion as just the breaking down of larger molecules into smaller molecules. The ribosomes, you can see them dotted around. You've got free ribosomes here, and you've got ribosomes bound to the rough endoplasmic reticulum as well. So you've got free and bound ribosomes. They are made of ribosomal RNA, and they're the site of protein synthesis, which you'll learn about more in further on in the course. This is the rough endoplasmic reticulum here. So you've got surrounded by ribosomes, lots of ribosomes attached. The job of that is to produce and process proteins. So the ribosomes are obviously involved in producing the proteins, and then within the endoplasmic reticulum, they are processed. Now, the rough endoplasmic reticulum is always found close to the nucleus. You can see that these are actually even attached to the nucleus. This one not so much, but this one is. You've also got the smooth endoplasmic reticulum here, which is responsible for producing and processing lipids. And it's sometimes found close to the nucleus. This one isn't. But it's not covered in ribosomes, so it's smooth because there's no ribosomes on the surface. The rough one is rough because the ribosomes on the surface make it rough. So you need to know the names and functions of all of these organelles, and you need to be able to recognize them as well in both diagrams and electron micrographs. Okay, so plant cells have additional structures. They have chloroplasts, which are here. So we can see the chloroplasts there. Chloroplast is also made up of a double membrane, so it has the outer membrane and then it has inner membranes. The membranes inside are called thylakoids, and within there The thylakoids and the chloroplasts are the site of photosynthesis, so that's where the carbohydrates are produced in photosynthesis. The large permanent vacuole is this light blue here. It contains cell sap, and it also helps to stop the plant from wilting. So because this stays full, it helps the cells to stay relatively full and stops wilting in the plant. And there's also a cell wall. So the outermost layer of the plant cell is the cell wall. The layer just inside, which is shown in a slightly lighter green, is the cell membrane. The cell wall helps to strengthen the cell and also contains cellulose. The cell wall also helps to prevent osmotic lysis. So if you put a plant cell into pure water, it won't burst because the cell wall helps to keep its shape and doesn't allow it to burst. Whereas if you put an animal cell into pure water, water would move in because there's no cell wall and eventually burst. We also need to know about some specialized cells. So we'll start with the intestinal epithelial cells. So so specialized cells have a specific function, and they have maybe slightly different structure in order to help them carry out that function. So intestinal epithelial cells have microvilli on their surface area. Microvilli on their surface to increase surface area for absorption. So obviously intestinal epithelial cells are found in the intestines where the majority of digestion and absorption takes place. So the more surface area we have for absorption, obviously the more of the nutrients from the food that we eat we can absorb, which is a good thing. Intestinal epithelial cells also have many mitochondria, which produce energy, or ATP, and that allows them to transport molecules into the cells and then into the blood to then move around the body to wherever they're needed. Okay, finally, just a few definitions. So a tissue is a group of cells working together to carry out a specific function. Often within the tissue, the cells will already be specialized, so the cells have a specific function and then they work together to carry out specific functions as a tissue. An organ is a group of tissues working together to perform functions. So for example, the heart is an organ which has muscle cells that are all working together to allow blood to be pumped around the body. And an organ system is a group of organs working together to perform the functions. For example, the digestive system is made up of a number of organs, which then allows for digestion and absorption to occur.